Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Anonymous Hedgehog podcast. My name is Maya,
My name is Rich.
and we'll be your host. So today our topic is whether or not you should be friends with or a romantic relationship with people that hold different political opinions than you. So I have always been of the belief that you should, and that that's what makes you kind of an open-minded, good person. But I feel like I'm kind of sympathetic to the idea that if you genuinely think someone is just like a bad person for their beliefs, like for example, they're like a white nationalist that like wants to like kick all black people out of the country, then I feel like it's normal, or like it's a natural reaction to like not want to be friends with them, because then that indicates something that about their morality and stuff like that. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely if your morals clash to the level of like it's literally like a racist person that like hates on people that shouldn't be hated on, like then yeah, I don't think you should be friends with them. But I don't think that's what you're talking about. You're talking about
Yeah.
just like general political affiliation. And like honestly, I feel like your political affiliation has almost nothing to do with the way you act around others in social settings. So like half the time, I don't even figure out like how my friend feels about a certain topic until I've known them for like a couple of months. And by then it's like, oh cool, you're a Republican. Oh cool, you're a Democrat. Like it doesn't matter because we've been friends for months already.
Yeah, I think that's the weird thing about like our society right now is like you kind of almost assume that their political affiliation says something about their character, but the truth is like it doesn't. Like there's so many different, like Republicans can be like, they can be nice, they can be mean, and like Democrats can be mean, they can be nice. Like it's so unrelated to
Yeah.
your character. And I remember there was this video that kind of really challenged it. I don't know if you've watched it. It was by Steven Crowder. It's called The Polite Racist. Have you
I
watched that
haven't.
video?
No, I
It's so
haven't.
funny. You should see it. Basically, it was like this family. I think they were having like Thanksgiving dinner or whatever. And then this guy and his girlfriend. And then like I think he was asking like I forgot, but Steven Crowder asked this guy, he was like, "Oh, have you seen this comedian?" And then because he's black. And then the
Uh-huh.
guy's like, "Oh yeah, no." Or the guy wasn't black, but the comedian was black.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Yeah, no, I haven't seen him." And Steven Crowder's like, "Why?" He's like, "Oh, I'm a racist." And then like and then he literally, the thing is he said it so calm. He's like, "Yeah, I'm a racist." And then Steven is just like, "You mean you?" He's like, "Yeah, I think black people are inferior." And then it was so funny because like he just carried on eating like nothing had happened. And he was just like, yeah, like he was just like, yeah, I don't think black people should have the same rights. And then
Yeah.
and then he just carried on like nothing had happened. And then everyone at the table, they're like, what just happened? And he's just like, yeah. So like, yeah, what's the weather like today? And
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah,
funny
yeah,
because
yeah.
like I think the thing is like you expect racist people to be like rude in real life.
Yeah.
And like but I feel like the majority of like even just like really racist people will actually be even like nice in real life, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like they won't show you that side even if they do have those beliefs. Like that doesn't actually affect their interactions with you.
That's so true. And also, like, people just tend to be way more outspoken when asked directly about their beliefs. But if you're asked to act on your beliefs, chances are you're not even that sure as to where you lie. So, like, for example, someone who's like extremely pro choice,
Uh-huh.
if time comes for them to actually get an abortion, like, they're not gonna like immediately jump onto the wagon. Like they're definitely going to consider the pro-life arguments. Same goes the other way around. But like on social media or like online, they would have like posts that basically put them on one side or the other. So it's like people just tend to seem very polarized, but like when time actually comes to make a decision that is impacted by your political affiliation, I feel like everyone is sort of a little bit moderate, at least to some extent.
I definitely agree with that. I think that when it comes down to something that affects you personally, it affects your life, then like people are definitely more hesitant, and they definitely like think things through a lot better than when they post on social media and they like yell at other people about not agreeing with them. But like when they have to make a decision regarding it, they definitely like yeah, they take a much more moderate stance. Have you ever like when you learn someone's political affiliation, like, has it ever changed your view of them? as a person?
I think what's changed my view is the way people express their political affiliation. Like I could not care less about if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. But if you are a Republican and you are shoving your ideology down my throat, or if you are a Democrat and you will not stop posting on social media about how anyone who's not posting on social media is a coward, then it's like yeah, like I'm gonna judge you because I just feel like you're an obnoxious person in general. But I don't think that has anything to do with their views. It just has
Yeah.
to do with how they're expressing their views.
Yeah, I think that goes back to our like very first episode about like just speaking so much and not listening at all. Like
Oh yeah.
you're just like spewing your opinions and like you don't really care about what other people have to say. I think that I definitely feel this with people. It's just like regardless of what their opinions are, if they like talk about politics basically kind of out of the blue all the time, I feel
Yeah.
like I just naturally have a bias against them because I'm like, I don't understand why you keep bringing it up. Even sometimes when I do like, I do agree with them sometimes on certain topics. Like if they constantly bring it up when it's not relevant, and when they kind of like, you know, like turn a regular conversation into one that gets super serious, super political, like then I just generally like dislike them as a person more than I would.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I've noticed actually is that like when I talk to my friends that believe in different values from me, we always end up finding some common ground because we're friends. Like it's not
Yeah.
like those debates you see on TV where you're not listening to each other. It's usually like oh I believe XYZ, and then the other person's like, oh well I believe like BYZ, and then they're like, okay well we agree on Y and Z, that's common ground, and we can disagree on the rest of it. And because we have that common ground, I feel like it just strengthens the relationship. And if you tend to agree on every single aspect of the world, then that's just like it's going to be an unhealthy relationship because neither of you are getting anything out of it. Like I feel like growth comes from disagreements.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I like grew up around people that which I just generally just disagreed with, and I definitely agree with that last statement. Just like I think that if anything it makes you grow as a person, constantly have to challenge your like notions of the world. And to I think that people who are surrounded by others that constantly echo their beliefs, it's just like they've never challenged it, and they've never thought otherwise. So they're almost like their arguments are not as strong as if you were to grow up around people who constantly challenge your beliefs.
And it's the whole concept of like whenever people move from their hometown and go to college for the first time, or they graduate college and they get a job for the first time, like your political affiliation changes dramatically just because you're being introduced to new echo chambers and you're being introduced to new opinions, and that changes your beliefs. But if you stay rigid the whole time and you don't even give other people the opportunity to try to change your views, then you are not going to be successful.
So I kind of want to switch the conversation over to in regards to relationships, because this is something that I've been pretty conflicted about too. It's just like, do you think that you should be in like not like a fling, but like a long-term relationship that could end in marriage with someone who has a different political affiliation than you?
So I think with romantic relationships, the way they differ from normal like friendships is that since you're so close to the other person, you sort of morph into the other person. Like when you're FaceTiming and talking and like hugging and texting and doing all those things all the
Yeah.
time, like you generate a sweet spot for the person so that even if they disagree with you like on polar opposite fields, you're still going to try your best to find common ground. So I feel like even if you do date someone that's part of the other political party, I feel like in like 6 months in the relationship, you will both have arrived at a similar conclusion of like you will both be on the middle ground, or you'll both be leaning slightly left or slightly right. But at the end of the day, you're going to be agreeing. And if you aren't agreeing at the end, then I feel like it's not going to work out.
I've that kind of interest like that's kind of interesting, that the fact that you you both kind of convince each other and you end up becoming more moderate.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, do you think that that's actually you convincing the other person, or is it just like because you have that affection for that person, you kind of fool yourself into thinking that they have changed their opinion? I feel like I sometimes, like, when I have a soft spot for people, like even my friends, like I am more willing to reconcile with them because I care about the relationship more than I care about my beliefs in the end. You know, like this relationship means more to me than like just being right or whatever.
Yeah.
So in those circumstances, I have been more willing to reconcile and find a common ground. But it's like that, I don't think my core beliefs have really changed. I just want to get along with that person.
That's interesting, because now you're talking about a discrepancy between your core beliefs and the beliefs you put up as a facade in order to reconcile with another person. And I think there's definitely a dichotomy between those two things, because personally, I've experienced this with me being like in a pretty polarized political affiliation and then becoming super moderate during a relationship because I'm with someone from the opposite end. And then after the relationship, like my core beliefs are back again. And I'm polarized again. And like I've seen this personally, and I know it sounds odd if you haven't like experienced it, like how can your beliefs just change so much because of a person? But I feel like when you are in like a long-term relationship, a lot of things sort of blind your core beliefs and you trick yourself into actually genuinely believing the facade that you're putting up for the other person.
Yeah, I don't think this only happens with politics and relationships too. I think it happens with like maybe your vision of the future. Like some people, like I feel like people have an argument about like whether or not they want kids, you know, and like some people, like when they get into a relationship and they love this person so much, they kind of believe that they're willing to like, oh, maybe I wanted kids, and this person is like, I'm willing to give that up. But then in like 10 years when they're married, they realize that they weren't willing to give it up, and that causes a lot of problems in the relationship, you know, like people, they either expect you to change or they expect that you've already changed, and they they just like they give up these things that they weren't actually willing to give up for this person. So I guess my question is like not necessarily like can you be in a relationship with people with different opinions, because I'm pretty sure everyone can, but it's just like, is it smart in the long run?
Well, in the long run, right? Like we mentioned that you have two sets of beliefs. You have the core beliefs, and then you have the facade that you put up. In the long run, the facade shifts into your core beliefs and becomes your core beliefs. And I think just like as you stay in your relationship, the facade starts moving closer and closer to your core beliefs until it eventually overlaps and just takes over. So I honestly don't think that like it's ever a problem. But in the case that your relationship doesn't last long enough for that overlap to happen, like there's definitely going to be times when you're contemplating, like, did I even pick the right person? Like if we're disagreeing at this fundamental moral level, then how can we even try to be in a relationship that needs the best of both worlds and needs us to agree on goals that are even bigger than politics?
I think it's interesting you bring up the facade thing, because like this is definitely, we talked about earlier, just like people on social media, they post something, like the way that they post is very different than how they would act if they were in that situation. You know, like the facade is not necessarily like more extreme or moderate. It can be like your facade is maybe more extreme than your actual beliefs too. Do you
And
think that
even with social media facades, like the more you post like extreme Instagram stories, the more you become an extreme person, until eventually like your core beliefs are that extreme and you just won't stop posting, because like the posts influence your mentality, which influences what posts you put up, and it just reinforces itself.
yeah. Like, do you think that a facade is like something that we should be doing? Like, because I guess the truth is like all of us lie to a certain extent about what we believe, because I think everyone just, they have a public image, and like it's that's normal to want to preserve your image, but like is that necessarily healthy to constantly be like lying to ourselves, essentially lying to other people about what we truly believe? Like does that build like fundamentally good relationships?
Well, I think to answer that, we have to pose another question, which is like, like what is the formula to building a relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were to think back at some of your greatest friendships,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the majority of them were created because you bonded over a commonality. And if
Mm-hmm.
creating that commonality requires you to put up a facade of some sort, then
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's definitely necessary. What do you think? Do you think common ground is the biggest deciding factor as to whether or not two people end up clicking, or is there some other factor?
I think that it is. I think that it is common ground. Because if you think about it, like the people that your childhood friends are just the people that have grown up in the same environment as you, even if
Mm-hmm.
they don't necessarily believe what you believe. Like maybe they grew up in an upper middle class neighborhood or whatever. They grew up on this street, and you guys went to a similar school. You guys had similar experiences. I think that is definitely the fundamentals of friendship. But at the same time, like you can build like friendships off like people who have like vastly different life experiences too, and I think those friendships maybe can be more built on belief systems. I think it depends what stage in your life necessarily.
What do you mean belief systems? Like, let's say there's two people. One person has like a very action-packed life,
Uh-huh.
but is literally like he's from Europe. The other person is a girl from America, and they have no hobbies, no hobbies in common, no similar taste in music, nothing that makes them common except for they both bleed red and they're both human.
um well, so for like not I guess like not that extreme, but like I've definitely made friends just because we hold like I guess sort of similar political beliefs, and
Mm-hmm.
in like the sense that I wouldn't have like known that person or wouldn't have like thought to really talk to that person if we didn't know this about each other. So I think that it is possible to almost just build friendships off of belief systems. Like you see this with religion all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
people like who share the same religion, a lot of them don't have that much other things in common. Like people who go to the same like from a Christian person from like Africa and a Christian person
Mm-hmm.
from like Canada are going to have vastly different life experiences, but they both
Mm-hmm.
have this kind of God in common, and even their church
Mm.
experiences are going to be so different. But
Yeah.
like this belief in religion and this belief in higher power just unites them.
Mm-hmm.
And so like this is why you see like those I don't know, like those missions that Christian kids have to go to like
Mm-hmm.
Jerusalem. I don't know. I honestly don't know what it's called. This sounds, yeah, like, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It's like people
yeah,
that
yeah.
go on those mission trips. And I think that this is what allows them to kind of connect with a place that they have never seen, a place that they don't really know, that's so foreign to them. It's because like this root in like this belief system of like a higher power.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I think like those fundamental values of like a higher power
Mm-hmm.
or the way people should be treated,
Mm-hmm.
or the way you should treat yourself. Like I think those three things
Mm-hmm.
are what people can relate to on a fundamental level, no matter where they're
Mm-hmm.
from. And then I guess the second tier of commonalities would be something like political affiliation, hobbies, music taste. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can just keep going down to like lower quality conversations. But I guess tier one, or the most fundamental way two people can build a relationship that is deep, that is wholesome, and that fosters more than just two people talking superficially, is through the way you treat others, the way you treat yourself, and a fundamental belief in like a higher power.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that kind of beckons a question like, how do our belief system, like how are those belief systems formed? Because we've definitely like both experienced this. Like we grew up like on the same street as someone, and then we believe just like vastly different things. Our life experiences have been honestly like identical to some of my like friends that are the same age, but like we have like really vastly different belief systems. Like honestly, like how does that even happen? I feel like.
Yeah, I I actually don't think that's true. Like I feel like the belief systems that we were put into are vastly different, but our the belief systems that we buy into, like within the belief system we were put into. Let's say you believe in religion A, I believe in religion B. Those two religions are vastly different. Within those religions, the actual aspects of those religions that we buy into, I think, are the same. Like, for example, just the fundamental belief that there is a God. Like, we both believe in that. The fundamental belief that you should treat other people right. We both believe in that. And those two things are in both of our religions. But, like, the random tradition that comes from our religion that you don't have, like, I don't even believe in that as much. And the random tradition that you have in your religion that you don't even follow, you don't believe in that much. So at the end of the day, our actual belief systems are still the same. It's just the name that we attribute to those belief systems that are different.
That's so interesting. Like, I haven't really thought about that, because if you think of like Islam, Judaism, Christianity, like those three big religions, like they all have like really extreme like sides to them.
Yeah.
But the majority of people do not believe those extreme sides, and kind of just believe, like, I guess the way that they practice these three religions are almost like similar.
Almost identical.
Yeah, they just kind of, they don't take all of the extreme stuff, like, like killing other people, like, and like these things, like they don't buy into those extreme beliefs, but they buy into those beliefs, like, treating other people like fairly. You can't like hurt other people, like not stealing other people's property. And that's so interesting, because these religions like so often come into conflict, but like their fundamental belief system is just it's so similar.
Yeah, that's why I think that conflict over religion is, like, honestly the stupidest thing anyone can do, because unless the person that believes in that religion believes in some extreme value of that religion, then it makes sense. But if you're conflicting just because the name of the religion is different, then it doesn't make sense to me, because like 99% of the people in this world have the same beliefs of a higher power. And to me, like, that's all that matters. Like, the actual traditions that go into how you express your love for that higher power, like, couldn't mean anything to me, because those are, like, anyway based on the individual. People have different ways of how they pray. People have different languages in which they pray. People have different, some people sit facing the east when they pray. Some people sit facing the west when they pray. Like, to me, those factors are superficial, but just the fact that they pray is the commonality that matters.
Yeah, I think that, like, something that I've always found super interesting is just like, these religions popped up in like vastly different parts of the world, and yet like kind of like they all sort of resemble each other, like, and like, yeah, like Christianity like didn't create like Buddhism or something. Like they all just they were created like separately, and yet they all, like, in modern day practice, they're all quite similar, and it just shows, like, I feel like we have just so many quarrels about politics and about all these things, but like the truth is, like, we agree on like most things, and like that's so lost in like, society when you like look at it today.
Yeah, like our core moral values are what is represented in religion, and our core moral values, I think this goes back to another episode, but at some point there are just some objective moral values that all societies have adapted. And those are the commonalities between religions. And then on top of that, like, as extra spice to the religion, there's different traditions and there's different like cultural values. And that's what makes us diverse. And diversity is good, but like we shouldn't set ourselves up to fight each other over that diversity, because our core values under that spice is the same.
Do you ever feel like, I feel like we are both kind of like people that want to find common ground with other people? Like, I've always found that in myself. Like, I always try to search for common ground within like people that I disagree with, but I haven't always found that other people are like that. Do you think that, like, have you ever found that it's just like you always try to like maybe like make concessions and make common ground, but like other people sometimes are just not willing to find common ground with you?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, watch any like online live debate, and like chances are at the end of the debate, the comments will be, "Oh, he won the debate. No, she won the debate." The comments will never be, "Oh, I guess they're right. They both agree on blah, blah, blah." Right? Because I think it just depends on the mindset you're put in and the situation you're in, because I've been in a lot of confrontational situations where the other person's sole goal is to prove me wrong and embarrass me. And I've been on the other side where my goal is to embarrass the other person. If it's a staged debate, if there's a lot of people watching, if it's for views, then yeah. But like when we talk to each other, it's a conversation. And I think with every person, like at the end of the day, they want to find common ground if they're in like a relationship with someone that they're just trying to improve.
Yeah, I feel like I've always experienced this where just like my friend actually told me this the other day. She was like, I think that you think that we agree more than we actually do. It's just like, I always think that like, yeah, like whenever I talk to someone, even with like vastly different beliefs than I do, I kind of like I just have like a mentality that's like, yeah, we agree on like a bunch of fundamental things and just we disagree on specifics of things, but like we, in the end we agree more than we disagree. But I feel like I'm always like almost the only one that does think that way. I feel like the people who I'm talking to like almost never have that takeaway from the conversation. And it's so weird to experience that.
You're the minority, right? In your friend group, in the friend group,
yeah,
your views are the minority.
Yeah.
And when you're the minority, I think you are always trying to get into the majority while still holding on to your beliefs. And the only way to do that is to find as much common ground as possible. Whereas if you're in the majority, you already have so much support from the rest of the majority that it's like, no, we completely disagree. You can stay in your minority.
Yeah. I think it's like a power dynamic there where it's just like, there's no reason for like the majority belief to change because like I guess they're not, because it's like, I guess it's like almost like they're not losing as much if they weren't changed. Like if I were to just completely shut out, like I'd probably lose all of those like 5, 6, 7 friends.
100%.
Yeah, but like they would just lose like me, this one person. They would still all have each other.
Yeah. It all comes down to like, what are you sacrificing? And if we flip the script, let's say that your friend was in my friend group, and my friend group is like completely polar opposite to how your friend group thinks. She would be constantly trying to find common ground with us because we all already agree. There's no reason for us to try to find common ground. Like, if you want to disagree, okay, disagree, leave. I already have a friend group.
That's true. I feel like this also happens with like the minority a lot. It's just that you're kind of just forced to question your beliefs all the time. Like I have experienced this so much. It's just like people, like they'll say something about like, and then I'll just like re-question, like I'll just question my entire belief system. I'm like, is this true? Like, is this thing that they said true?
Yeah. And
like, I think that the majority, there's just so much agreement that they never have that like moment. They're like, wait a minute, like, could this thing that they're be saying is true? Because like they hear it from other people, like, oh no, I agree. But like, I don't have that person all the time that's like, oh no, like your belief is totally reasonable. I'm like, maybe I am being unreasonable. Maybe I'm just stupid. Like, have you ever have that moment where you're like, yeah, maybe I'm just stupid. Like,
I'll have that moment all the time. And I think that ties into mob mentality, which we also talked about earlier. I'm realizing how many things we've talked about because everything we say connects to something else from another episode. But like with mob mentality, it's like, because everyone agrees, it's okay to like act outside of how your individuality agrees. So in that case, like the mob is like the greater mind, which is the majority, and your individual mind is the minority. And in that case, the majority overpowers the minority to the point where no one's individual values matter, and the mob ends up, acting crazy, destroying things, and it doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah, I think this thing about challenging your beliefs, like, is super interesting, like, especially within a mob mentality kind of idea, because I feel like with social media, it's just like one big mob or whatever. But like, I feel like I almost do it as a brain exercise to like challenge my beliefs, like take the other side for a moment, like I almost just do it like when I don't have to do it sometimes because I'm so used to it. And I think that it's really beneficial in like just developing your beliefs and developing as a person. But like this like again goes back to something else we talked about, but like are there certain beliefs that you just shouldn't entertain? Like, because I feel like I saw this like thing on Reddit that was like, people who just dismiss the flat earth theory without like ever like thinking about it, like again, like they just dismiss like, yeah, that's stupid. Like without ever actually looking at their arguments are just as bad.
Yeah, they are. I
Yeah, like
agree.
I've always felt that too. It's
Yeah.
like if you just dismiss it, you're like, oh yeah, this is not true. Then like you're just as bad as people that you think are ignorant, right? Because you've genuinely never looked at the argument.
Yeah, I think so too, no matter how stupid the argument goes. And I mean, dismissing, I think, implies not thinking about it at all. But with the with like consideration, it doesn't mean you have to research it for hours. It just means you need to find at least like one point that completely dismantles the other side's argument. And if you can do that, then you can dismiss it. So with flat earth or like anti-vax, there's been like I've definitely surfed those websites that claim that those things are true, but because there's enough evidence that I know exists that can dismantle it, I don't need to keep considering it. Do you do you ever feel like you disagree just for the sake of disagreeing?
Yeah. I think I definitely, yeah, I do that too. It's so weird how we do that. Like you agree for the sake of disagreeing, but sometimes you agree for the sake of agreeing, but sometimes you just disagree for the sake of disagreeing. Like why why do we
Yeah.
do that to ourselves?
Yeah, do you feel like there's a little like a thrill that comes out of being the one person that disagrees in a group?
Yeah, that definitely does. It's like another thing of like we were talking about earlier, the aliens episode, like being the one. You're like, oh, you're like the chosen one, or like the special one. Like
Yeah.
you're the odd one out. And like
Yeah.
you're unique, and like you're not like the majority. You're not like those other people. You were like you have your own mind, right?
I think that's what fuels like these conspiracy theorists because they're just regular people too, but like I think the thrill that they get from, like deriving these conspiracy theories and knowing that they're part of a small subset that knows the truth, that's the reason why these conspiracy theorists conspire.
Yeah, like it's like the fantasy, like you're the only one that knows.
That
And like
knows, yeah.
yeah, it's like the whole like dystopian novel kind of idea where just like
Yeah.
you're the only one that knows the truth and like you have to
Yeah.
save society or something from like impending doom. And
Yeah.
like I agree that there's a thrill to that, and there's like yeah, there's a desire to just be different for everyone else.
I've
And like
definitely tapped into that thrill a lot as well.
yeah, we all do it, like no matter, like it's not to the extreme of being flat earth, but we all do it to like to some extent. Okay. I guess we could just end the episode here. It's been like half an hour.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.